Hey y'all, welcome to the Unleashed Performance Therapy Podcast. I'm here with my co-host Robert McNair, and our guest on the show tonight is the head athletic trainer for the Utah Jazz, Dr. Jamal Cort. Dr. Jamal Cort, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show tonight. Appreciate you being on. How's it going this evening?
Pretty good, and I appreciate you guys, kind of making the time for me to be here with you. I always enjoy, speaking with folks about, what it is that I do and kind of my journey. So I'm looking forward to just having another opportunity to kind of get to do that.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. As PT students, we kind of our goals are to be at that high level. Most of us want to be in sports in
Yeah.
some fashion, and I think being at that high level is kind of what we all aim at. So,
hmm
do you mind just giving us a brief overview? Talk to us about your journey. How did you went from PT student to working in the NBA?
Yeah.
Tell us how that went.
I'll try to make it as short as possible because I think it kind of get long with it sometimes. So like
Uh
typically
huh.
when I start this story, I tell people that I started off doing nursing. Um, So coming from a Caribbean background, like my mom was like, "You going to school to be a nurse?" Like she wasn't having
Uh
anything else.
huh.
She wasn't really hearing anything else. So when I went to school in Buffalo, I went to Damon College. It's now called Damon University, and I pretty much did what my mom told me. She was paying for it, so who am I to tell her otherwise, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I maybe made it like a semester and a half into the nursing program. And I just kind of got to the point where I wasn't happy with, the choice that she made for me. I don't think I genuinely wanted to do it.
Uh
So I
huh.
switched my major. I ended up being undecided for a semester as you know, as I figured
Trying
out
to
what it
figure
is.
things out.
Yeah, exactly. I had a really good college counselor, Miss Adrian Williams. She helped talk me through a lot of problem solving, and and a lot of what she told me was, hey, try to find something that makes you happy. And that was like her message to me, as I tried to figure out what it is I want to do with the rest of my life. And then coincidentally at the time that I had those talks with her, my school had started an athletic training program, so after talking with her about the program, it kind of made sense to me because I still wanted to be in healthcare and I enjoyed sports. So it was like, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really know about athletic training prior to that. Didn't really, know what the job was, but on paper, it just kind of made sense. So I switched majors to healthcare studies. How that program worked? It was a 4+1. It's where you did 4 years for your bachelor's of science. So I got that in health and fitness training, and then I did an additional year to get my master's of science in athletic training.
Oh,
And
that's
kind of like,
nice.
and then kind of throughout the course, throughout like the curriculum, especially when we got into the athletic training program specifically, like I've pretty much done as a student, I've pretty much done every sport that you could think of under the sun. So, Western New York is big for like lacrosse, field hockey, then the other sports, soccer, basketball, baseball, for pretty much everything you could think of, I've done. I've done ice hockey. So that kind of, gave me a nice broad foundation to figure out what it is that I liked, what it is that I didn't like. I kind of knew I wanted to work in basketball, but I think actually going through the motions of like being with these other sports and kind of seeing what kind of came with the territory helped me narrow it down for sure. And then I got to the point to where I was like, yeah, I think I want to do basketball. So graduated with my bachelor's of science. That summer, I
Mm-hmm.
applied for a PFAT scholarship with the NFL, so the Professional Football Athletic Training Society scholarship. Um, I was lucky enough to get selected as one of the recipients for the scholarship. The team that chose me was the Minnesota Vikings. So
Oh
part of the
man.
deal was, in addition to getting the scholarship money, I did training camp with them. So I was out in Minnesota for the entire summer. Probably the hardest physical job I've ever had in my life. And did that, learned a lot. There's so many bodies and so many players, like you see so many things each and every day that you get so many reps, and you just naturally become good with your hands. You become naturally good at just becoming organized because you have to be when you're dealing with that many people.
Uh huh.
So I went through that, like that rigorous, that summer with those guys. Very, very hard work. Went back to Buffalo, finished my masters, and then the Vikings called me back for a second summer. So they typically like to bring a former intern back to kind of lead the next group of intern for the for that following summer, so that they can have an easy transition for themselves, so that they're not retraining every single body, everything, and they kind of have somebody they could kind of show everybody the ropes while they do,
Mm-hmm.
while they kind of deal with what they have to deal with. So did that, finished with that, graduated, did a bunch of odd jobs here and there. One of my preceptors in Buffalo knew I wanted to do basketball, so he had a connection down at Bethune-Cookman University down in Daytona Beach, Florida. He was able to get me on with with them. I interviewed, and then I was selected to be a basically like an intern with the men's basketball team. So it's a small HBCU Division 1, but it was still Division 1 nonetheless, and just another opportunity for me to kind of put some more experience under my belt as I tried to get to the NBA
Yeah, for
eventually.
sure.
Um, so from Cookman, made it to the end of that season, and at that point, I'm applying for jobs, trying to figure out what it is that I wanted to do. And the thing that helped me kind of get my footing was when I started with the Knicks. So that kind of came about when I was interviewing for a position. I forget the school it was, but it was a school in Oregon. And the guy that interviewed me, his name was Fred Tedeschi. So what I didn't know at the time was that Fred used to be an athletic trainer with the Chicago Bulls. Um, so long story short, after talking with Fred, he said, "Hey, we can't offer you the position." It was a position as like a with their football team. He said, "Hey, I can't offer you the position, but I would still like to see you end up somewhere good. Like, do you have anything going on that I might be able to help you with?" So at the time, I had heard from the Knicks, from their head athletic trainer at the time, and his name is Roger Hines, and Roger, said that there might be an opportunity for me to come and intern with the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing really guaranteed, but just kind of keep it on my radar. And I figured because it's home for me, it would make more sense for me if I was able to get an opportunity to be with the Knicks, just financially. Like I wouldn't have to worry about housing,
Yeah.
transportation, food, things like that. Because as you all probably know, internships don't pay anything. So Fred basically said, so during that call with Fred, when he tried to, see what I had going on, if there was anything I might be able to help him with, I told him about, the possibility that I might interview with the Knicks for a seasonal assistant position. And he basically said that him and Roger are good friends and he would give him a call for me. And he gave Roger a call, and like not even a few days later, I get a call back from Roger telling me that they're going to interview me for that position. So I drove back up to New York from Daytona, interviewed the day, and they hired me on the same day. So so that was like a really really good feeling to like
Oh yeah, for sure.
like I never felt like I made it at that point in terms of like achieving my goal of being in the NBA, because I know it's an internship and I know that can
Yeah.
sometimes be short lived, but I was just like super grateful to even have the opportunity to be, or to at least start to be in a place where I dreamed about being one day. Um, So I went through it was the 2015-2016 season. So kind of the same thing. Not as many bodies as football, obviously, but still learned a lot. Still, still got to see a lot, experience a lot. Then I also made a lot of connections, because part of my job as being a seasonal assistant was whenever a team visited, I would go introduce myself, see if they needed anything, and just kind of make sure that they had everything they needed throughout the course of their visit. To
Mm-hmm.
play the New York Knicks at the time. So as I'm winding down this internship with the Knicks, again, still, I'm now back to where I was when I was in this Daytona Beach, at Bethune Cookman, trying to figure out what am I going to do next, because it doesn't sound like this is going to be something that's going to turn into a full time job. So again,
Yeah.
so I'm back to interview, back to interviewing, sending my resumes out, doing all this. And one of the guys I worked with the Knicks at the time, Dr. Erwin Valencia, he actually graduated from the transitional DPT program at St. Augustine. Um,
Okay.
I kind of liked how he worked. I saw what he did, and he basically, motivated me to apply at St. Augustine. So now, because I had a master's degree already, I had a lot of the prereqs to apply for St.
Mm-hmm.
Augustine, and also because I didn't have any money, I didn't have enough funds to pay for all these different PT school applications. So I said, well, I'm gonna apply to this one school. If I get in, great.
Mm.
If not, I got to figure something else out. Uh, so I kind of took a shot in the dark. I got in. I got into the Miami campus when they first opened it up, and that was that was a challenge in and of itself going through that whole
Oh
curriculum.
yeah.
Trying to learn on this new curriculum that the school was building at the time, and trying to manage doing that while living in Miami and trying to be successful in school. It was not easy. But like school is school, and you go there with the mission,
Uh-huh.
with the goal, and the goal was to graduate and to hopefully, in my mind, I have these good experiences. I have my master's in athletic training. Now, this is another opportunity for me to get something else under my belt, credential wise, that might make me more marketable to help me get to that next step with working for an NBA team.
Yeah,
So
100%.
so then made it through school, graduated. I actually I was actually hired by a clinic in New York to go so the clinic I got hired in was an outpatient orthopedic clinic. You know, it was the last place that I worked as a student, and they brought me on full time right away after graduating. Passed my boards. They kept me on. I was like, well, hey, there's nothing else going on for me. So I was kind of back in the same boat
Yeah.
again, trying to figure out, okay, what's next? What do I do from here? And coincidentally, one of the guys that I worked for with the Vikings, Matt Duhamel, he was now working for the Timberwolves at the time. So Matt gave me a call while I was actually at work covering. I think it was like a soccer tournament or something, like a youth soccer tournament. And he basically, asked if I could, if I'd be able to, come out and help the Timberwolves with summer league. And I'm like, yeah, like this is what I want to do,
Yeah.
absolutely. And he was basically like, so how, like, I asked him how soon would you guys need me there, and he was like, we'd like for you to fly out tomorrow. So I'm like,
Say
tomorrow? Like, what do you
less.
mean tomorrow? like, so uh, so then I basically called my boss from the PT clinic that I was working in, and I said, look, hey, I have an opportunity. It may be something, it may be
Uh-huh.
nothing. This is an opportunity for me to, because I would always talk with them about my goals and things like that. So he knew very
Yeah.
well that I wanted to, work in the NBA. And I explained the situation. He said, hey, man, you got to do what you got to do. So, like, I basically quit that day, packed my stuff up, went to Minnesota for like a week, I think it was, and then ended up working with them out in Vegas for summer league. And then while I was out there for summer league, I had spoke with a few organizations, and one of them being the Utah Jazz, and they interviewed me for a position with their G League team, the Salt Lake City Stars. So that's kind of where I got my start from.
Okay.
Kind of going that route. Was able to get my foot in the door with the G League team, and then just kind of moving my way up throughout the ranks ever since then.
Nice.
That's a
So,
hell of a journey, man.
I wanted to quit
all four.
every month. I'm like, man, I'm broke. I need a real job, and I just I need to figure something out. So,
And you're all over the place, all four corners of the
man,
globe almost.
it
But
was
it's
not.
a big thing. Definitely us going through PT school, and I've been in the physical therapy world for a while.
Yeah.
And you always hear from those kind of established therapists and older people's like, don't burn bridges.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small kind of fraternity of people like PT, athletic training. Once you get in that kind of sports realm, like you said, all your connections that kind of brought you to where you were. And I think that's one big thing that I've been doing kind of in my journey, like
Mm-hmm.
not making all these bridges, not burning bridges, just talking to
Yeah.
as many people as I know. So yeah, that's a testament for sure.
Oh yeah. And you kind of alluded to it earlier. You said like the one of the biggest differences between working with the NFL and the NBA was the amount of bodies that you were working on,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of people that you putting your hands on. What other kind of differences would you say there were between working with football players and basketball players?
the elements, and this is a big part of why I didn't want to do football or any other outdoor sport. Like I don't like being in the heat. I don't like
It's
being,
too
I
it's
don't
too
like
hot.
I
It's
don't
too
like dealing
hot.
with the rain. I don't like any of it. Basketball is a nice temperature controlled environment sport, and it was like it was like, and like I say that jokingly, but
Oh no,
Uh-huh.
being
it's real.
out in the sun in Minnesota when it's 90 degrees and you just got to stand there with with water bottles in your hand, and is like it's draining. You know what I mean? It's just again, like I'm a fan of football. I enjoy watching it, and I enjoyed working it when I did it. But I knew I was like, yeah, basketball is for me. I need to
I
stick to what I'm comfortable with.
I completely understand, man. Growing up in Texas, definitely people ask me like why I chose like the physical therapy route, and it was more of because my mom, she was a nurse, so I
Mhm.
was like I grew up around the medical field, and I love sports, so I wanted to tie it in together. But
Yeah.
like you said, I also like the air conditioning. If there was a way, hey, if I could tie those two in, and I didn't have to be out there setting up equipment, breaking down equipment, like when I'm in
So,
school and stuff, I'm like, all right, we're gonna go this medical route.
yeah, I'm telling you, it's something different.
What about the severity of the injuries? I mean, there's obviously going to be different injuries and injuries that are similar, but what about the severity of the injuries? Did you see more significant things going on in NFL and NBA or vice versa?
Luckily, like when I was with the NFL, I didn't see a ton of like anything like as far as like severity with injuries. I saw like a typical ankle sprain. I saw contusions,
Mm-hmm.
a few concussions here and there, but like I think we may have had like one ACL that summer. Um, but like nothing to where it was like super severe, and anything that was like
Mm-hmm.
limb or life threatening. Like thankfully, I never had to experience any of that stuff. But it was like because of the sheer volume of people, and then like you dealing with the elements and the heat, so you have to we're always cognizant about potential heat illnesses and
Yeah.
overuse injuries, and and you get the cramping and all that kind of stuff when you work in this.
Mm-hmm.
So severity wise, it wasn't horrible, but like those minor things that we did see, we saw a lot of them just because of the nature of the amount of people that were around during camp.
And so they brought you on for camp. Does
Hmm.
that mean that they like bring extra people in for specifically for training during the summer?
Yeah, so I think
So they have
so.
their do they have their core and then they have their
Mhm.
core staff and then they bring more people in?
Yeah, so
Okay.
so so as far as like the medical side, they had a ton of team docs. I think somebody's trying to call me. All right, cool. Yeah, so we had like 5 or 6 doctors. And then like between
Are
like
these
the
medical doctors?
yeah, yeah, yep. So like, and they're all like different disciplines, obviously, orthopedic
Uh-huh.
surgeons, general medical doctors, etc. Um, so we had like 5 or 6 of those guys. Then between like the disciplines of like strength and conditioning, athletic training, physical therapy, there was like maybe like another 7 or 8 people, and then and actually like that was my first exposure to folks that were dual credentialed in physical therapy and athletic training. But at
Yeah.
the but some of the guys that I worked with, they were older, so like a lot of them were athletic trainers, and also they weren't DPTs, they were masters in
Yeah.
physical therapy. So just because the DPT is relatively newer compared to some of the other things. So
And so you have your core, and then you've got those extra people in the summer. If we talk more about the core staff, what are we looking at as far as in the NBA? What kind of like how many people do you have on staff
hmm
for? You got your athletic trainer,
hmm
um, and then do they have like massage therapists? And I mean, you're PT. What else they got in there?
yeah. So if you ever get a chance to speak to other people that work for other teams, you'll learn quickly that everybody's like structure is like very very different, and you go from team to
Uh huh.
team. So like with us specifically, our director is an athletic trainer and a strength and conditioning coach. You have myself.
Okay.
I'm dual credential in athletic training and physical therapy. Uh, we have a guy that's strictly an athletic trainer. Um, We have a young lady that works as a athletic trainer, and she also doubles as our massage therapist. Um, we have a PhD athletic trainer that works with us as well, and he functions as our sports science person. And then we have two strength and conditioning coaches. We have a head and an assistant strength and conditioning coach.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering about that because as a physical therapist, part of our practice is manual therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So I always wondered if it was the PT doing the massage therapy
Mm-hmm.
aspect of things, or if they brought someone in that was a licensed
Yeah.
massage therapist, and there was like a fine line that you don't cross, or if everything
Yeah.
just blends in.
No, I mean if there's if there's like targeted like soft tissue work where if there's like an injury that I see and there's something specific that I want to work on like a specific muscle group, I'll do that myself. If if I happen to be working with that person at the time, but we do have like our primary massage therapist that handles that. Then we also kind of like contract with another massage therapist that will come in on certain days and kind of provide massages to guys as well.
Okay. So, what does it take to work? And I know you've talked about us about all the experiences that you've had over
Mm-hmm.
the years, and you worked here, and you worked here, you were working here, and then you're moving all over the place, kind of learning these new skills, building your toolbox. What do you feel like is the best way to work with athletes effectively? What did it take to be able to do it and do it well?
In what capacity? Like, and I only ask that because we deal with them. I shouldn't say deal, but we work with them in many different capacities outside of just clinical care. You know what I mean? So it's like
Uh huh.
so it's so, like as with any product that you're selling. So like I kind of look at my services as a product, right? So I have to get this individual to buy in, somebody that has, probably never met me if we have like a rookie or somebody that we traded,
Mm-hmm.
or even with me being brand new with the staff when I first started. A lot of it is going to be buy-in, from these players, from these individuals that one, I know what I'm doing, and then two, that they can trust me to do the things that I know that I'm doing on them, because that's how they make their money, that's how they support their family. So, so it's important that they are able to buy in to the service that I am telling them that that I can provide to them. So like I would say like the biggest thing is, even before that step of clinical care and being able to treat injuries or illnesses or whatever you might come across, is being personable enough to have a relationship to where that person can trust you to even do anything with them. And then
Mm-hmm.
once you build that foundation, once you get that rapport with that individual, then you selling your product to them, which is the skills that you have, becomes that much easier.
Yeah, and so you you're selling this, you're selling this brand that you created for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Starting off as an athletic trainer, you were working one way, and then you became DPT, and you can kind of shift your mindset a little bit. Um, how do you feel like those things blended together?
Um, Honestly, between the two professions, like there's so much crossover. So it's like it's really hard to like distinguish, to say like, okay, I'm functioning as an athletic trainer when I do this versus I'm functioning
Mm-hmm.
as a PT when I do this. I think the biggest difference, if you look at the two professions, at least from my standpoint, is in athletic training we get a lot more training in like emergency care, acute care management, because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times as PTs we don't see people until after the fact, after they've been through the incident, after they've gone to their primary care physician.
Yeah.
So and it's usually sometimes a few days or a few weeks or sometimes even a few months, to where if you're functioning in a PT, and let's say if you're in like an outpatient clinic setting, I remember when I was there, there was a lot of instances to where I didn't see somebody until them being hurt a month later. And I think now, being so close and having the emergency care training, the acute care training, that I can,
Yeah.
and I'm usually 9 times out of 10 I'm around when something is happening. So like I get a chance to address it immediately when it happens, and then be able to formulate a kind of plan of care from the very beginning to the very end to where they're able to return to play.
That was gonna be my next question. If you felt like the acute care knowledge helped you to form those 3 months down the road, if it
Yeah.
was able to kind of shape the progression to get to that, which other athletic trainers might not have that ability to see things that way.
Yeah, I mean, like the more information you have is better, right? You know, because there are instances to where you're going through a history with somebody and they don't remember a lot of what happened, or they don't remember like the mechanism, what they did, what position they were in, et cetera, et cetera. So it's always helpful to be there on the scene and see it for yourself, and then as you're going through the history taking and you're asking the
Mm-hmm.
questions, you already have an idea of what happened, and you're just trying to confirm or deny, you know, what it is that you saw versus what it is that they felt happened to them. You know, and that just helps with making things as specific as possible when it comes to, you know, formulating a plan of care.
As a athletic trainer or PT working, you definitely you've been on the different levels. Like you said,
Mhm.
I had a homeboy that graduated from Bethune Cookman,
Oh
and
yeah, that's what's up.
like you said, you're D1 level, and then of course you got schools like Florida, Miami. They're
Mhm.
the amount of money they get, they're pretty much almost professional level with the resources
Yeah,
they have. But was there a big difference going from the collegiate level to professional? Did you kind of attack things the same way, or is it
yeah.
the main thing just kind of the liability? Because it's now you're working with guys. This is their profession.
Hmm.
Like at first you were working with guys that are trying to get to that level, but now you're working with guys
Mm-hmm.
like this is their profession.
Yeah.
And like you said, you're doing stuff where you're trying to get them to buy what what you're doing to buy into it. So was there a big transition? Like was it difficult transition into the professional?
In terms of resources, like it became easier because there was just access to, you know, like you could pretty much get access to whatever you want.
It's unlimited, huh?
It, I mean, almost, you know, like if you know, like if there's a need for something and it's gonna, you know, make somebody better, whether it's actually physically make them better or if it's just a placebo. Like if it works, it works, and you know,
Yeah.
and if
Yeah.
you know, and if it's something that makes sense that could benefit them and potentially benefit other people, you know, we're gonna, you know, try to vouch to make sure that that person has it. I think the biggest thing coming from, especially like a small HBCU like Bethune Cookman, where the resources are very limited, it kind of forced you to become more creative. So now it's like, even with all these things available to my disposal at any time, um, you know, I can come up with creative ways to use things outside of the way that they might have been intended. For example, you know, so it's like having the background of not having any resources at all. It forced you to kind of come up with creative ways to make something happen, whether you're limited in space, limited in resources, limited in time. So now that you have more time, more space, more resources, you can essentially kind of make up whatever you want to make up to make it fit whatever situation that you're trying to, you know, treat or deal with, you know, to accomplish like that goal, which is which is when you're dealing with an injury, just to get the guy back to playing.
Is there anything that you said that you mentioned the placebo effect? Is there anything that you feel like is really popular right now with players? Any specific modalities, or like the K tape, you see everybody wearing K tape, anything like that?
Not anything that's trendy right now. I think that's going to be so individualized because, you know, every
Uh-huh.
individual player has, you know, different people around them that might see different things, and you know, one player might like something that nobody else in the world knows about. So I
Yeah.
can't specifically say that there's any
Uh,
one thing that I've come across at least this year that you know, that's trendy to the point where it's like everybody's trying it, everybody needs it. Every individual player it's like it's a team sport, but they're so individualized in so many different aspects, and I think that's one of the ways that they're pretty individualized.
okay, okay. Yeah, kind of backtracking a little bit. Robert was talking about the differences between collegiate and professional
Hmm.
football. It kind of made me think about how when we see on TV, someone gets hurt and they go in the tent and then they have to cart them off the field. So I'm
Hmm.
wondering how that process looks like. So someone gets hurt in a game, you have to go check them out. They go in the tent or an NBA. They
Hmm.
just go to the locker room. They head out to the locker room. what does that process look like from the initial acute injury? They go into the locker room. What's happening next? Like, how are y'all assessing them in the locker room, and then what happens after that?
So, so, so in my role specifically, during games, I'm on the front of the bench with the coaches. So I have the quickest access to guys if they get hurt, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say a guy goes down during the game. You know, I'm running out there, and as I'm running to the scene, I'm looking to see is there any blood, like does it seem like they're conscious? Like, are they moving? Are they making any noises? So that as I'm approaching them, I have an idea of, could this be a life threatening injury, or is this something that, you know, that they may or may not be able to return tonight, you know, to the game. And as I'm approaching the scene, and I get to the player again, I'm reassessing the same things, and I'm asking them the question, you know, like, where does it hurt? What happened? You know, how much does it
Mm-hmm.
hurt? But with it being NBA, I have to be as quick as possible, but as thorough as possible at the same time when assessing these things. But ultimately, if they're able to, I would like to get them to get up and walk back on their own free will, or with my assistance if they need it. And at that point, I will hand them over to another athletic trainer that can take them to the back to be further assessed
Okay.
by our team doctors. So our team doctors are at every single game, and most if not all arenas have at least X-ray capabilities. We also have diagnostic ultrasound in our facility.
Oh, okay.
So you know, so we have those tools that our team docs will kind of manage. But yeah, but like, if it's a situation to where, you know, like I said, if they can walk, I want them to walk. But the goal is to get
Mm-hmm.
them off the court as quickly as possible while being as thorough as possible with the exam, and then, you know, them going to the back to you know, to get examined by our team docs to make the decision of returning to that game or not. Sometimes they can, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
there's instances to where it'll be more of a detriment to their health if they try to come back with whatever they're dealing with.
Yeah,
Okay.
no
Is
pressure.
is is that the same in the collegiate level,
Pretty much,
or is it a little bit?
pretty
Okay.
much. No, yeah, yes. I mean, you know, it's pretty similar to where, like, there'll be paramedics, there'll be you know, team docs around, there'll be other athletic trainers. Um, at the college setting, there may not always be multiple athletic trainers from the same team, but the other team typically always, if at least if it's a Division I college, most Division I colleges will send an athletic trainer with their team to travel. But if you look at some of the Division II, Division III, they don't always travel with an athletic trainer, because in those cases, you know, there's one athletic trainer that works for 5 sports, you know, so they could have basketball, football, and their priority for travel might be football. So like that school might send that team, you know, with like a list of things like, hey, here's what like my players need to get ready for the game, and it's up to that home athletic trainer to be able to take care of those guys, you know, during the game. But at the college level, but at the professional level, we have obviously more resources, so we we we, we never run into that problem.
So you kind of mentioned it already. You mentioned it in your story on your journey to becoming or to reaching that goal of working in professional sports.
Hmm.
You got your foot in the door in different ways. What do you feel like? What's the advice that you can give for current students in order to get their foot in the door as a physical therapist? We don't really have that athletic training background. So, if as a physical therapist, what would be our way to get a foot in the door with a professional sports team?
I think like the biggest thing is going to be to build a resume with, you know, with actual sports, you know, because
Mm-hmm.
I I think with like PT, like especially students, like they're running into situations where they're interested in sports, and then, like, let's say if they want to do a clinical rotation at a clinic, and it says like it's a sports PT clinic, right? But then you actually get there, and like you're seeing like mostly, like, you know, like geriatric population,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, like it's advertised as a sports clinic, and you might see one athlete or maybe two, and, like, you know, it's like an ankle sprain, or like if you're lucky, you know what I mean? Like, at least that was my experience. And I think it becomes important for PTs to where not only can you get experience with athletes, but also experience in a sport environment. Because it's one thing to say that you've worked with athlete, but you have to know how to work with coaches. You have to know how to work with, if you're at a college, athletic directors. At the
Hmm.
professional level, you have to know how to talk with like GMs and different front office peoples that you won't get experience by just being in a clinic working with one or two athletes that might stroll through. So the biggest thing is like not only getting experience working with athletes, but being in a sport specific environment where you're actually around the team and you're in that environment. You're seeing how these different parties function around each other.
That's a whole
Okay.
nother topic right there, dealing with the coaches and GMs. I'm
Yeah,
sure you got enough pressure on you. Like you said, a player goes down and you're running out trying to assess you're in front of the crowd. But then
mm-hmm.
by that time you get them back to the bench or back in the locker room, I'm sure you got an assistant coach asking if they're coming back and all that. Or so I can
100%.
imagine the
That's
the
100%.
extra headaches that is.
Yeah.
And so when you're seeing these athletes when they do get hurt, are they doing their rehab? Is all their rehab being done on the in the facility? Because I'm assuming nobody goes to an outpatient clinic that's a professional athlete.
Yeah, I mean,
Or
like that typically doesn't happen. So like again, that's gonna depend on the structure of the specific team. So like part of my role as being the director of rehab, I'm typically the one that's writing most, if not all, of like the plan of cares. If somebody is post op,
hmm.
like they're gonna automatically work with me. If anybody's gonna miss any type of significant time because of an injury, they're gonna work with me directly until they get
uh,
to a point to where instead of it being 80-20 me strength and conditioning, like they'll slowly transition to working with me less and more with the strength and conditioning coaches and more with their actual, you know, individual sport coaches so that they can
yeah.
get back to return to play. But initially they're with me a bulk of the time before they start to transition as they get better.
It's nice that you can have control over that too. You can like oversee everything and get exactly what you need and what they need.
And it helps. It helps with transparency because that way now everybody knows what's going on, from like everybody that I work with to the strength and conditioning coaches to the actual like basketball coaches. So it's like we're all typically on the same page of what's going on. We're all pretty much on the same track as the guy goes from phase to phase of the rehab as he gets closer to full return to full participation.
Yeah, I can see
That's
that being
tough.
another hurdle as well.
Yeah,
Maybe bumping heads with strength conditioning coaches, maybe trying to get people back too soon. So
yeah.
you got it's
But
a
but
long list of stuff.
honestly, like I'll say I'm lucky because a guy will come in, I'll work with him in the morning. I typically like do some type of reassessment every morning, and there are my specific things that I want to do treatment wise. But as soon as I'm done with the guy, I'll go straight to the strength coach, and I'll say, hey, here's what he look like. Here's his pain levels, and it hurts in these positions with these motions. I would like to see him try X, Y, and Z, and
Hmm.
and our strength and conditioning staff, like they're so good to where it's like I can go to them and say those things, and I never have to say, hey, I want you to do this exercise, this activity, this task. I can just give them a generalization of what I think I would like to see them do to see if they're ready to progress or not, and then they'll figure it out themselves. So I'm very fortunate to have the setup to where I can like our strength coaches have the autonomy to do whatever they think is necessary based off of the goal that we're trying to accomplish.
Well, before we wrap it up, there's a couple more things I wanted to ask, just some
Okay.
light questions.
Yeah.
So what is one piece of advice you would give your younger self at any point in time? It could have been when you were in high school, college, graduate school. What's one piece of advice you'd give your younger self?
Don't run from the hard work. I think
Oh,
I felt like I run into it a lot, especially I'll get people reach out to me on LinkedIn and people like ask to have talks with me about stuff, just one-on-one type
uh-huh.
stuff. And I typically get met with a question, not specifically asking for this, but it's really alluding to, okay, like what's the shortcut? Like what do I have to do to kind of cut the corner to get to this?
Uh-huh.
And it's just like you don't want to cut the corner. Like you want to go through all of it. You want to make the mistakes. You want to learn from those mistakes
Absolutely.
because without that, you're gonna get to a point and then when a mistake does happen, you're not gonna know how to handle it. So it's better to
Right.
just kind of deal with that stuff early on and build up kind of like
Mm-hmm.
the mental toughness to be able to adjust and adapt once things happen, because things will not always go your way. Most times they won't go your way. You have to build up that kind of muscle memory and that mental toughness when it comes to dealing with those things.
To be prepared. That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Uh, I see that. I kind of I feel the same way with not running from hard work, learning from your mistakes. I feel like you have to be able to experience things in order to have the experience. That's kind of what it's the definition. It's the answer is in the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's how you gain experience is
Absolutely.
experiencing it. Describe what you do in 3 words.
That's tough. You were-
Yeah. Put you on the
Need a
spot.
5,000.
Put you on the spot.
I'll say protect, provide, and perform. I use 3 words:
Oh,
protect, provide, and perform.
Nice.
okay.
The
Yeah,
three
Quick with that
P's.
one.
The
yeah,
three
yeah.
P's.
I'm gonna
Nice.
write that down.
Yeah. That's the name of the show right there. We just named the show. That was a good one.
For
All
sure.
right, and Dr. Court, I really do appreciate you taking the time, man. I know you're a busy man, so it really means a lot to both me and Robert that you're able
Sure.
to take some time to speak to a couple of grad school students.
No, man. Thanks for
Yeah.
taking the time out to get back on the phone with me. I know I messed up the time a little bit with the time zone.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
You know, I,
Yeah,
you know,
time.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys. Like I said, it's always a good opportunity to share my story. I think, you know, if anybody can listen to this and get and take something good from it, like that's like I know how it is because I always hear from people, but I know how it is to reach out to somebody that's in my position and not hear anything back, and it can be discouraging. So I will always try my best that if there's ever an opportunity to share any words of advice or words of wisdom that I have in my shop, because I've only been around for 4 years, so I have a long way to go
Uh-huh.
still. But even if something that I can say or teach somebody today that might help them get closer to their dreams of being in pro sports or whatever their dream might be, I will welcome that opportunity to do so. So I thank you guys for allowing me to give me the platform to be able to speak and kind of tell my
Yes,
story.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Anytime, and we'd love to have you back on again in the future if you have it.
Yeah, let's
You
do it.
got, you
I'm
got a
always
lot of
ready.
time zones. A lot of
I
time zones
know.
rattling around in that head.
Yeah, man. I'm telling you, every 3 days it changes. So
All right, guys. Well, that's going to be it for this episode of the Unleashed Performance Therapy Podcast. If you have anything you want us to talk about on the podcast, shoot us a DM on the Instagram at unleashed.tx. And y'all, be sweet to me. Scroll down to the bottom, give me a 5-star review, share the podcast with your family and friends. And until next time, peace.
all right, y'all.